Well, here we go again. The city of St. Paul trying to get the state of Minnesota to chip in to renovate Grand Casino Arena. I think a lot of us, when we go to watch a Wild game or go to watch a concert, you think like, man, this is such a great experience. It's perhaps the best place in the Twin Cities to see a concert. And the urgency here, a lot of us don't see it, which has been a bit of the challenge in trying to get legislators to understand. Well, it's always hard to get legislators to pay for a sports arena. There's lots of politics, lots of emotions in this. And the mayor of St. Paul, Kaohly Her, is with us on the John Schuster Coldwell Banker Hotline to make the case. Mayor, good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. This is the first big ask of the legislature for you in your first term as mayor. $200 million that you and the Wild are seeking to upgrade the whole complex. Some of this for the Grand Casino Arena, some of this for Roy Wilkins Auditorium. Tell me why you think this is a good deal for the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, so I think that we have to center ourselves in understanding that this is a city property. So these are three properties that belong to the city, and that these are city properties that generate revenues for the state. And that the Wild is our tenant who leases it from us, and that they're putting in a third of the cost of renovation, or we're putting in a third as a city, and we're asking for the state for a third. And this process makes it so that we do not have to increase any property taxes to address this, because the city's portion will be funded through our own bonding authority. And so I think that it is important for us, if we want to look at what is happening within our state and the need to generate more revenues for our state in taxes, that we have to have facilities that can compete with other venues so that we can continue to generate those revenues for our state and for our city.
What's wrong with Grand Casino Arena right now?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily look at things from either like what if there's something that's right or wrong. I think we have to remember that this complex, the Grand Casino, is 26 years old. The Roy Wilkins is almost 100 years old. And the funding that we're asking for the Roy Wilkins also includes the River Center. And these are all facilities that when they were built 26 years ago, some of the standards that we have now around safety or around, the codes, that those things did not exist. I mean, if we think about people's ability to work in buildings and what happened during COVID, our HVAC systems that were built 26 years ago do not accommodate the needs of what we're seeing going into the future. And so this is us making sure that the items behind the walls and how we're operating our buildings, that we actually meet those needs. I think that it is important for us to do that. And people might look at it and cosmetically think everything is fine, but there's a lot of infrastructure that we need to actually update within these buildings.
Yeah, I think part of what people don't understand is that, Grand Casino Arena competes with Target Center, competes with the new Mystic Lake Amphitheater in Shakopee. I mean, everybody's competing for similarly sized concerts. And one of the challenges with Grand Casino Arena / River Center is like the loading dock situation. If you were a big modern touring concert act, it stinks. It is very difficult to load in and get your stuff through the concourse. And I know like the people at the Capitol, maybe your legislators and maybe your taxpayers around the state are like, is that a big deal? That is a big deal, is what the arena people are telling me.
Yeah, and I would say that I think that it is important for us to be competitive. We do have to update our facilities. But I would also ask for us as a state and as a city and as a state to understand that this venue generates taxes for the entire state. And if the state does not pitch in its portion of it, that means that when if we wait too long and then we finally have to do the work, it will all fall on City of St. Paul residents' property taxes. And that when a venue is a public property, and it's generating revenues for people across the state, we absolutely should then all be pitching in and asking a team who doesn't own that facility but uses it, and they're going to continue to pay lease and pilot to us, even with their third of upfront investment. I think that that's a really good deal for our residents and our state of Minnesota.
Kaohly Her is the mayor of St. Paul, talking about the request from the Wild and the city for the state to chip in. Now, last year the ask was $50 million. Originally, the ask was $400 million. How did you come up? I mean, is this 200? Is this like an opening negotiation, or is this what you think really needs to be chipped in to get this done today?
I mean, this is what we really need. And we really scaled down. When I brought everyone back to the table to negotiations, it was, what do we need to do? And there were some things that the team decided that they could forego, and there are things that we're working on. Like the whole Roy Wilkins is not going to get renovated from this. We're literally working on the infrastructure underneath the Roy Wilkins, so that then when we get to future phases, that we can actually address the Roy Wilkins Auditorium itself. But this makes the River Center more usable, right? The convention part of it. And so, like, we're trying to be reasonable in what we're asking for. And I think that this is a reasonable ask because the original project, I think, was almost $1 billion. And we're saying with $600 million, we will do a third, Wild will do a third, and we're asking the state for a third. I think that is a really reasonable ask.
When you look at how important Grand Casino is to what's going on in downtown St. Paul and when it's the success of St. Paul as a city, how important is it?
I mean, I think it's very vital. If anyone who knows anything about the city of St. Paul is that we know that the area of where we have the Grand Casino and the Roy Wilkins and River Center, we also have the Ordway and a number of entertainment venues, and it's always we're doing very well there. Right? When we have events at all these venues, downtown St. Paul is thriving. But when we don't have events there, then we do have issues. And we know that more activity leads to a greater safety. We know that more activity leads to development and investment into our downtown and wanting to build housing there. We know that we have to have this economic engine for the rest of everything else to come in. So if people want housing, they should absolutely be supporting this project. If they want to have better and redistribute the tax base to more businesses, they should absolutely want this because businesses shoulder a larger portion of the property taxes. And so if we want to address the property tax issue, we absolutely should be supporting this project.
You were in the legislature. You know how hard it is to convince the entire state that they should chip in for this. What's your gut tell you in a gubernatorial election year with an almost evenly divided Senate, an evenly divided House? I mean, what are your chances here?
You know, I'm an eternal optimist, and I always believe that if there is a will, there is a way. And I will say that when you look at the financial case for this, think about it, right? On average, this Grand Casino brings in about $15 million in taxes to the state. If you think about the 26 years that it's been in existence, how much? And that's being really conservative, right, in our estimates. So just think of over the course of those 26 years how much it has contributed to the state. And if we want to continue to do the programs that we care about, to continue to do a public good, we absolutely should be supporting venues that will be able to pay more property taxes. And we can increase the bookings and the entertainment that's happening there if we have better facilities to compete. So I think that if we all look at just the financial piece of it, it makes sense for us to absolutely do this. And I hope that is enough for our legislators. And that's where my optimism comes in, is that I know that they want to raise more revenues for our state, and this is a way to do that.
The Wild, we know, like the Wild does pay rent. And they pay so they're, I don't know, I think the last I read was they all in end up paying around $3 million or so. Rent is a little shy of $2 million. But so they're paying rent. You have all the events, all the other stuff. Let's be serious for a minute. If you don't if you don't renovate, Grand Casino Arena is not going to shut down. It's a city-owned asset. You're still going to have concerts and other events. What is the risk if you don't renovate? Is the Wild talking about the Timberwolves are talking about building a new arena. Maybe we go over there. What is the risk if nothing happens?
You know, I think that we could have that conversation, or we can talk about that. The city already has almost $1 billion in deferred maintenance in all of our city assets. That those things, when buildings start to fall apart, when we cannot operate them existing without a tenant becomes extremely problematic for us. That even when we have tenants, there will always be, and we all know who people who own properties, right? Properties depreciate, and they break down over time. And so the city has the same issues with all of our properties, and every city has issues with this. And so if we want to be able to maintain our properties and to ensure that the future cost of all the liabilities don't fall on the existing taxpayers, we have to take care of these buildings now. It's as if you had a home, and for 26 years, you just let that building sit there, and then you expect that somehow that building is going to be operational. It existing in itself does not mean that that building is suitable for use. And so we have to remember our city assets are the same thing.
Well, you've been to WCCO Radio, haven't you?
I have.
You know what happens with decades of deferred maintenance not being done? You've seen our studios.
Absolutely. And that's why we have to take care of it, because they serve a public good.
Kaohly Her, I'll tell you, the texters and the commenters, you can imagine. Minnesota people are never enthusiastic about spending money for this. And I think part of it is that it is perceived as like we're bailing out the Wild, or we're building a palace for professional athletes. And you're really trying to convince people and get people to understand that St. Paul owns this arena. It's not the Wild's. Mm-hmm. So if you let it go to crap, it's a St. Paul problem and then ultimately a state problem.
That's exactly right. And I think that we have to remember that if it were a different tenant, would we feel different about that, right? If I had a building that belonged to our city, and instead of having a sports team and having concerts coming in and having culture events coming in, and they were not the tenants, but it was somebody was renting it for office reasons, we wouldn't make that same argument, because somebody is paying upfront, a third of the cost of it upfront, and they're going to pay lease, and they're going to pay payment in lieu of taxes, which we are continually arguing about who should be paying into that. This team is saying they are invested in St. Paul and they're willing to pay that because they care about our city. We should want those types of tenants in our city.
Mayor of St. Paul, Kaohly Her, appreciate it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you so much for having me.
And now they go off to the legislature and try to get it done. Your tax, keep them coming. 651-461-9226. To me, if the city of St. Paul loses Grand Casino Arena, you may as well, shut the doors. It is, yes, the Ordway is significant, but it's pretty much Grand Casino Arena with 150 nights a year booked. That's the draw in downtown St. Paul right now. And with all the state hockey and state wrestling and all that other stuff, I don't see how you have much of a choice as a state. You've helped. You help on all these projects all over the place, but just because it's a sports team, you're going to say no? I don't think so.